What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Bush coming at you solo today to break down my 2023 NFL Scouting Combine reaction. Basically, for fantasy football purposes, what matters, what doesn't, who's on the rise, who's on the fall, who are the biggest losers, who are the biggest winners, and did everybody answer the questions that we had for them or not? So, we're going to break down everything that happened this past weekend at the NFL Scouting Combine, tail of the tapes. Now that the combine is over, we'll be starting probably on Wednesday with Bijan Robinson kicking it off. But without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, so I'm going to go position by position and basically talk about the questions that I had about each player before the NFL Combine and did they answer those questions or not? And that's basically going to result in them either being a winner from the Combine or a loser from the Combine. So for the quarterback position, most of these guys were pretty solid. I wouldn't say that any of them were losers necessarily. We're going to start off with Bryce Young, who is my consensus, QB1, the consensus for us at FSE and for most NFL teams as well. All he really had to do was weigh in, right? He needed to come in. Don't be 5'8", 180 pounds. He came in 5'10" and an eighth, 204 pounds. To me, I have zero doubts in my mind that this is a clear top 15 to 20 startup pick in Superflex leagues and the 102 in rookie drafts. In fact, I actually think he's a lot closer to Bijan Robinson at 101 than he is to Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud at 103/104. So to me, Bryce Young answered the only question that I had about him because his tape was by far the best, in my opinion, of all the quarterbacks. So Bryce Young comes in above 200 pounds. That's all he needed to do. He's going to throw at his pro day at Alabama. Of course, we would have liked to see him throw with all these guys, but the important thing for him was to weigh in, and he did that. So I would say slightly less of a winner was Will Levis. He had a fine workout throwing the fastest speed, I believe 59 miles per hour was a pretty quick speed there. The reason that I don't think he was like a huge winner because he kind of showed what he needed to show and he didn't really surprise me with anything that he did. And other guys did surprise me with stuff that they did. Bryce Young weighing in obviously was a big time winner. Stroud kind of showed that he's just absolutely surgical from an accuracy perspective. And then, of course, Anthony Richardson, I'll get to in a second. Levis is supposed to be the king of the process right now, right? Because he's the big quarterback. He's got the strong arm. And to me, I just wasn't all that impressed with him. I think he had a good workout. I think he showcased his arm strength. But I think he's clearly the quarterback 4 in this class, even though, he's going to be a top 10 pick and maybe potentially, the second or the third quarterback off the board. To me, he's just very clearly QB4. So I would say of the quarterbacks, he is the biggest loser, but he definitely still had a solid workout. So winner number 2, probably the biggest winner in most people's eyes, was Anthony Richardson. AR-15 posted a staggering 100th percentile relative athletic score. So for MathBomb, I'm going to make a lot of reference to this throughout the video. Basically, what he does is he composites all of their athletic metrics into an RAS score, which is relative athletic score. And he has those available. If you want to check out at Kent or at MathBomb on Twitter, Kent LePlante is the guy that does this. The highest a quarterback has ever scored was Anthony Richardson since 1987. So we got to remember that guys like, Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, they didn't really do all these workouts. So take it with a grain of salt that Anthony Richardson's the most athletic quarterback that there's ever been. Because, for example, with Lamar Jackson, people, if he tested, wanted him to move to wide receiver or wanted him to move to different positions. So normally we don't see these super athletic quarterbacks test, but with Anthony Richardson, we definitely did. Still, this should absolutely cement Anthony Richardson as not the next Malik Willis, because that was really the only concern we had for Anthony Richardson coming into the combine was, is he going to go in round 1? Is he going to go in the top 10 overall picks? I think he's likely cemented there for sure. And maybe potentially ahead of CJ Stroud or ahead of Will Levis or maybe even ahead of Bryce Young in the eyes of some NFL teams. So definitely good news for Anthony Richardson. I'm not going to overreact here though, because yes, it's absolutely impressive that he lived up to the hype, right? He came in at 6'4" and a bit, 244 pounds as he was listed. He ran a 4.43, which is a ludicrous number for a quarterback. He jumped 40 and a half inches, which is the best that's ever been recorded for a quarterback. 10-foot, 9-inch broad jump as well. Just stupid numbers, right? But for me, he already had a perfect grade in my grading system for physical tools, for athleticism. So I kind of already expected him to be a freak of nature athletically. So I'm not going to overreact to this. He is firmly locked in as a top 5 Superflex rookie pick. And I would say the highest I'd be willing to take him is 103 behind Bijan Robinson and Bryce Young. If you wanted to take him higher than that, again, I can't really blame you for swinging for upside. But again, for me, I'm playing a game of probability. So yes, if Anthony Richardson hits, he will be a better and more valuable asset in Superflex rookie drafts than probably even Bijan Robinson, but definitely Bryce Young. But for me, the game of probabilities is that Bryce Young, I think, is a much, much better prospect overall than Anthony Richardson. So, there's like an 80% chance or a 70% chance that Bryce Young hits versus like a 20 to 30% chance that Anthony Richardson hits. So the game of probabilities is kind of what I'm playing there. But by all means, swing for the fences, take him 102, take him 103 or 104. To me, he's ranked as the 104 right now behind Bijan Robinson, Bryce Young, and CJ Stroud, but I wouldn't blame anybody for taking him a little bit higher. The rest of the quarterbacks, I don't really care at this point in time until we see draft capital. We got some positive news on Hendon Hooker's knee. We saw, Stetson Bennett sling the rock around a little bit. He tested pretty well. So those guys are going to probably make up the tier 2 of quarterbacks, second, third, fourth, fifth round picks type of guys, but we have to wait and see draft capital and landing spot before I'm going to go crazy over any of those guys. So let's move on to the more exciting position groups here, which is the running back and wide receiver position. We're going to start with running backs. To me, the biggest winner of all of the running backs at the combine was Chase Brown, running back from the Illinois Fighting Illini, London, Ontario's finest Chase Brown. We love to see our Canadian fellows doing their thing there, ranked as my RB5 pre-combine. So I actually really, really like this film. One of his biggest weaknesses on my grading system was actually that I thought he was going to be an average athlete. I didn't think he was going to be that good of an athlete at the combine, but he tested with a 9.62 out of 10 RAS score. So very, very good athleticism from Chase Brown. I was not expecting that. I expected him to be, 4.52 type of run, middle of the road agilities, middle of the road type of jumps and stuff like that. But his comps were very similar to guys like Jerick McKinnon, guys like Aaron Jones. He led all running backs with a 40-inch vert, a 10.7 broad, which also led running backs, a 4.43 at 5'9" and some change, 209 pounds. He also weighed in at 215 pounds at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. So we already know that he can add a bit of size to his frame if he needs to, probably slim down a little bit so that he could run faster. But I think a monster day for Chase Brown. I think what we're looking at with Chase Brown now was he was a guy that I expected to kind of go in like that third, fourth round area and hopefully into the third round. But I think there's an outside shot that this guy sneaks his way into the top 75 picks or maybe even round 2, given how he tested. He's a little bit more of an older prospect, so he probably interviewed well as well. So definitely a great day for Chase Brown, posting a 9.62 out of 10 relative athletic score. Was not expecting that. He was already my RB5 in my rankings. He's probably going to move ahead of Tank Bigsby to RB4 after this testing because I'm going to have to alter his weaknesses a little bit because it is in fact not a weakness for him. So definitely a great day for Chase Brown. He is on the rise for me. A big-time loser, and I think the biggest loser of the entire combine at the running back position was Zach Evans from Ole Miss. On top of not working out, which I think he really would have tested well, given that he, on film, one of my biggest strengths for him was athleticism. He's not going to test until his pro day in late March, so he definitely could, rise back up once he actually tests. But the biggest thing for me with Zach Evans was he actually came in at 202 pounds. At 5'11", only a 28.2 BMI. And I think this is a double whammy for him because, number one, I think his athleticism and power was the way that he won in college. So we didn't see his athleticism, and that definitely hurt. And now we see that he's undersized. So that power is kind of in question on how much that's going to translate to the next level. Plus, I think, I literally had size listed as a strength for him. I actually thought, he was listed 5'11", 212 or whatever. He looked like he was that big on film. So that needs to be changed as well. I think this will likely cement him as a day 3 pick versus a guy that could potentially go in round 3 or maybe even round 2, and a back that might fall outside the top 10 in terms of my own rankings because he was RB9 for me pre-combine, and he definitely did not get any better here. So Zach Evans, definitely a faller for me. A different Zach is a winner. Zach Charbonnet, running back from UCLA. I had very few questions about him on film. He was my RB3 in my grades before the combine, just behind Jahmyr Gibbs. He was actually quite close to Jahmyr Gibbs in terms of his overall grade. He could pretty much do everything well. He's elusive. He's got good contact balance. He's big. He can catch the ball. He's good in protection. All that stuff is well and good. I wanted to know how athletic Zach Charbonnet was because I didn't think he was going to be athletic, or at least it was a question for me. He came in a little bit lighter than the 220 pounds that he probably played at and he was listed at. Came in 214, probably to run a little bit faster because he probably knew that teams were questioning how athletic he was. A 9.68 relative athletic score is comparable to what Rachaad White put up last year. And as we recall, Rachaad White is definitely considered a good athlete. So Charbonnet He didn't run a 4.6. That's really all I wanted to see from him. He ran a 4.53, which is a very, very good time given his size. 37-inch vertical jump, 10.2 broad jump. A great day for Zach Charbonnet. Definitely a guy that is cemented now pretty much as my RB3 in the class. Hopefully he goes round 2, round 3 at the latest in the actual NFL draft. This should help him in terms of his draft capital because he probably answered a lot of the questions in the interview rooms as well because he's an older prospect. He's a senior, so he's probably very experienced and well spoken. We can get into the next guy who I think is a loser, which is Sean Tucker, running back from Syracuse. You guys know I've been a big Sean Tucker supporter, but the things are stacking against him now. Like it's starting to get bad to worse. Sean Tucker came in and weighed in a little bit smaller than he was listed. He was listed 5'10", 210 pounds. He came in at 5'9", 207 pounds. So definitely not off to a good start, right? Then he doesn't run. He doesn't test at all. And I talked about Sean Tucker before the combine as a guy that could be a big time riser because I think he's a good athlete, right? I think he was going to run probably, high 4.3s, low 4.4s. I think he was probably going to jump well. I think his agilities may have been a question, but overall, I thought he could have been a big time riser from the combine. So the fact that he didn't actually do anything, he might be out of sight, out of mind for a lot of these teams until his actual pro day comes up. So I think he really missed an opportunity to test and showcase that he is one of the better athletes at the position in this draft class. So he and Zach Evans, a couple Devi darlings, dynasty darlings, sliding down draft boards, in my opinion. So those were the main winners and losers for me at the running back position. I'll kind of just go rapid fire over some other guys that mattered. Another, obviously, winner was the Texas running backs. Bijan Robinson did his thing. We know what kind of athlete he is. I wasn't really shocked at anything that he did. 5'11", 215 pounds, ran a 4.46 officially. Also had a pretty good 10-yard split as well with a 1.54. Vertical jump 37, broad jump 10.4. Nothing that Bijan Robinson was going to do is really going to shock me at the combine because it's all there on his film. Roshan Johnson, his teammate, obviously getting a lot of buzz from the Senior Bowl. He comes in 6 foot 218 or 219. Definitely a big back. Broad jump of 10.2, also pretty good. Didn't have the greatest vertical jump. Ran a 4.58 40, which is pretty solid weight adjusted speed score. So those two guys definitely had a pretty solid day. Jahmyr Gibbs, the consensus RB2 in the class, he came in sub 200 pounds, which was definitely a concern that I had for Jahmyr Gibbs. Definitely not great, but he was actually 5'9" instead of the 5'11" that he was listed at. So BMI wise, definitely not bad. Knowing that he came in at 199, 5'9" was definitely better than him coming in at 5'11", 199. So he pretty much did everything else that I expected him to do. He ran 4.36. I knew he was going to be fast. Jumps were a tad disappointing, so a mixed bag overall, but I would say fine, generally speaking. Hopefully he tests with good agilities at his pro day if he ends up doing them, because I think his RAS score will eventually end up being quite good at that point. So my pre-combine RB4 was Tank Bigsby, and I think he had a great day. He came in a tad shorter than his 6 foot listed weight and size at Auburn. He came put 5'11" and a half, 210 pounds, which is pretty solid BMI of 29. And like Zach Charbonnet, I was thinking just don't run in the 4.6s, Tank. Like I think he had good film. He had a pretty well-rounded skill set. I was just worried that Tank Bigsby was going to run a 4.6, like a 4.64 or something like that. And he came in and he ran a 4.56. So it's a pretty solid speed for his size and for his skill set. He's not going to be a blazer. He's not going to run away from defenses, but he definitely had a pretty solid day and hopefully a riser in the minds of NFL teams because draft capital is, of course, a question mark for him as well. Devon Achane, I think a slight loser of the combine for me because even though he ran a 4.32, which is definitely very fast, it's not like I wasn't expecting him to run at least that fast, if not faster. And the big reason I think Achane lost on me a little bit is because the size that came in was 5'8" and a half, 188 pounds. It's a really small running back profile. He was listed around that size. So again, we didn't already know that, but at least we had the unknown of, hey, what if Devon Achane's actually 5'10" and 195 pounds? So definitely he is a small running back. Plus I have questions overall on field in his skill set because he's not a very elusive running back. He's not very good through contact. All he really does well is catch the ball, be a good receiving back, and run really fast. So definitely have some concerns about Achane's overall skill set. A 33-inch vert is also not ideal for somebody of his size. You want to see them at least be great athletes. So mixed bag for Devon Achane, but overall I would say slightly stocked down for me. And then quickly, rapid fire, a couple other guys. Deuce Vaughn looked great on the field, but he didn't really test anything. 5'5", 180 pounds is really, really small. But of course, he does look good when he actually plays football. Dwayne McBride came in a tad lighter at 209 pounds. Kendre Miller came in at his listed size, but didn't test and might not test even at his pro day. So that's definitely going to be not ideal. Tajay Spears and Eric Gray didn't run their 40s, but they had pretty solid on-field workouts. We'll definitely have to wait to see some pro days to complete the running back class puzzle that we have here, but definitely a pretty solid group overall. And I would say they tested pretty well given the strength of this running back class. So we can move on to the next position group, which is the wide receiver position. Wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba was definitely the biggest winner of the combine from Ohio State. He posted great numbers. He came in at 6 foot, 196 pounds, right? That's a box that's checked. He's got good size. Even though most people think he's a slot receiver, that's size that's good enough to play on the outside. Had solid jumps, including a 10-5 broad jump, right? Checked another box. Dude posted elite agilities, the best agility drills for the wide receiver position by a wide margin. So Jackson Smith-Njigba, very agile, very good route runner. We kind of already knew that. The only thing we don't know about Jackson Smith-Njigba at this point is how fast is he, right? He didn't run his 40-yard dash. He should run it on March 22nd. He said at the podium that he's only been healthy for about 2 weeks coming off of the hamstring injury. He probably was fine in the medicals as a result, but he didn't really have time to train for the 40. So again, probably by design, he probably wanted to get the other drills out of the way and just focus on the 40-yard dash for his pro day. But I think he really helped his case for being the first wide receiver off the board, potentially in the NFL draft. Definitely in the eyes of dynasty players. I'm sure most people have JSN as their wide receiver one. It's definitely getting a lot closer because the biggest loser, at least in my eyes, or a lot of people's eyes, is Jordan Addison of the combine. And this one really sucks because Addison was my wide receiver one entering the combine. He probably still will be, but I do have to lower his grade a little bit because Jordan Addison's grade before the combine was the fourth highest grade I've given a wide receiver since 2021. Only Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, Drake London, and Garrett Wilson were higher. He actually would have been my wide receiver 3 in each of the last 2 draft classes had he been in there. Jordan Addison came in at 173, which I already knew he was small, right? But there was at least the outside shot that Jordan Addison weighed in 180, right? So I'm not going to double count the fact that he comes in small because he was listed 175, he weighed 173. So he definitely came in at about his listed weight, but I wanted to see him, do what Jackson Smith-Njigba did. Bulk up to 180 or do what Bryce Young did. Bulk up to 180, don't do any tests at the combine, and then wait till your pro day and probably test a little bit smaller than what you bulked up to at the combine just to eliminate that concern for NFL teams. He ran a 4.49, which again, a lot of people expected him to run faster than that. That's about what I had him listed at as far as my film. So the 4.49, I'm really not that concerned about. The thing for me is more the size. So Jordan Addison, definitely a mixed bag, probably a loser of the combine. This hurts him a bit, no doubt. I'm definitely going to move his grade down a little bit, but I'm betting once reception perception comes out from Matt Harmon, we're going to be reminded what actually matters at wide receiver because generally speaking, athleticism at wide receiver has not been very predictive. It's not been very sticky. So Jordan Addison coming in a little undersized, not necessarily testing the highest level. Once he runs his agilities at his pro day, he definitely will get his RAS score up a little bit as well. So definitely not a great day for Jordan Addison. But overall, I'm just going to lean on the tape. I'm going to lean on the fact that I think he's the best receiver in this class, but it is getting closer between him and JSN. So another winner of the combine is Jalen Hyatt, wide receiver from Tennessee. He tested very good, right? Some people thought he was going to run faster than 4.40, but I think you can't be really disappointed by a 4.40 for a wide receiver, and it's expected that he was going to run fast. He also had a 40-inch vert and a staggering 11.3 broad. So that kind of shows you how explosive Jalen Hyatt is. 176 is a little bit of a problem, right? He comes in a little light at 6 foot, but given his skill set, it's kind of understandable, right? That's about the size profile that we saw Jameson Williams come in with last year. And I think Jalen Hyatt is going round 1 in the NFL draft. No question in my mind. So draft capital, definitely not a concern. He's going to be a guy that, fills out that late round 1, early round 2 part of rookie drafts. And I have no problem taking him in that area, given what we've seen from him and his skill set. A big time loser of the combine, probably actually a bigger loser than Jordan Addison to me, was Kayshon Boutte. This was a bad showing, right? Nothing really went right for Kayshon Boutte, in my opinion. He comes in smaller than his expected size, right? He was listed at 6 foot, 6'1", 205 pounds at LSU, and he comes in at 5'11", 195 pounds. So size no longer a strength. It's not a weakness for him necessarily, but it definitely was not a strength anymore. And he runs a 4.5 flat, which isn't bad for Kayshon Boutte, but the jumps were legit trash. 29.5-inch vert is one of the lowest that we've seen in years. Could really hurt his draft capital, especially knowing that we had questions about his attitude. We had questions about whether or not he was going to interview well. I didn't hear anything, but it doesn't look good knowing that at least, like, if Kayshon Boutte had come in and been big and been fast and been athletic, then at least if he didn't interview well, there was the upside shot of, well, maybe he's going to still get good draft capital because, like George Pickens, for example, who supposedly had some attitude concerns for some teams, he still got good draft capital because the athleticism, the tape was there. Kayshon Boutte's got a lot of question marks. So he's probably going to slide to like a late second round pick for me in terms of my overall rankings. Another winner of the combine was Zay Flowers. And here's Zay Flowers' numbers next to Tyler Lockett for comparison. Exact same weight, exact same vertical, virtually the same height, same speed. I actually think Zay Flowers would probably have had better agilities had he done them. Despite bulking up, right? We know he went from like 170 pounds or whatever, what he played at, to about 182 pounds is what he weighed in at here. He should definitely be a top 40 pick in the NFL draft, if not a top 25 pick in the NFL draft, because he crushed the Shrine game. He's definitely doing well in the combine. I think Zay Flowers definitely on the rise yet again. Another slight loser of the combine here is Josh Downs. I think he tested pretty well, 4.48, 38.5-inch vert, 10.11 broad. But the reason I think he's a slight loser is because he came in at 5'9", 171 pounds. So he was listed 5'11", 180, which is more of the size profile of like Jahan Dotson. He comes in closer to the size profile of Elijah Moore, which you can see here, 5'9", 171 pounds. And in fact, Elijah Moore was actually even bigger than Josh Downs. I don't think this will affect necessarily what the NFL thinks of Josh Downs, because I think they were already viewing him as a pure slot receiver. But fantasy folks, knowing that, his analytics were so good, right? Any analytical model that you have will show you that Josh Downs is a great prospect. But knowing that he's this small, that's going to ding his analytics a little bit, and people are going to be not quite as high on Josh Downs. And to me, this is actually kind of good news, because he'll likely slide to like the 201, 202, 203 in some of my rookie drafts, but the size profile definitely does ding his grade a little bit more than I expected it to, because 5'11", 180 is one thing. That's a pretty small receiver, but 5'9", 171 pounds, like, we're talking smaller than Elijah Moore. So definitely not a great day in terms of size for Josh Downs, but he had a pretty good day in terms of testing. A couple more winners here, just rapid fire. Quentin Johnston opting to run his 40 on March 30th at his pro day, but he came in slightly smaller at the 6'4", 215 pounds that he was listed. But the big takeaway is that he jumped 40.5 inches and had 11.2 broad jump. So to me, that's really the big thing with Quentin Johnston. You see the explosiveness, and he still came in big, 6'3", 208 pounds. So definitely a good day overall for Quentin Johnston. I wish he would have ran his 40, because he probably would have ran in the 4.4s, but he's probably going to run that at his pro day and probably run in the 4.4s or something like that. So definitely pretty solid day for Quentin Johnston. Tyler Scott from Cincinnati also had a pretty solid day. Good for his future draft capital at 5'10", 177 pounds. He comes in, runs a 4.44. Thought he was going to run a little bit faster than that, but great jumps, 39.5-inch vertical, 11.1 broad jump as well. So definitely good news for him. He'll probably go in the second or third round of the actual NFL draft, which makes him a good, late round 2, early round 3 type of guy for rookie drafts. And same goes for Rashee Rice and for Marvin Mims, who both had good days. Rashee Rice, a little bit of a bigger receiver, 6 foot, 204 pounds, ran a 4.51, which is a pretty good time for him. 2.62 split, 1.49, 10-yard split, which was actually better than a lot of the smaller receivers' 10-yard splits, 41-inch vertical as well, and a 10.8 broad jump. So pretty explosive athlete, given what I was expecting. I thought he was going to come in a little bit more like an average athlete, but definitely good testing for him. And then Marvin Mims from Oklahoma comes in small, right? 5'10", 183 pounds, but it definitely could have been worse. He could have been Josh Downs size. 4.38 40-yard dash, 39.5-inch vertical jump, 10.9 broad, and a pretty solid 3-cone drill as well. So pretty solid overall for the wide receiver class. Again, this is not a great receiver class. It's a pretty average wide receiver class, but some of the guys at the top and some of the guys in the middle are interesting. So now let's get into the real freak show, and then we'll close this video out. The tight end class absolutely showed out. I don't even really need to say anything aside from these tight ends are athletic, right? Darnell Washington from Georgia, Zach Kuntz from Old Dominion, Luke Musgrave from Oregon State. All these dudes showed out. Darnell Washington, I'll show his RAS score on the screen right now. Nearly 6'7", 6'6.5", 264 pounds, ran a 4.64 40-yard dash, and his shuttle time was absolutely absurd. 4.08 shuttle time. We're talking about a time that was like 0.15 lower than Jackson Smith and Jigba's, who had the best of all wide receivers. Like, Darnell Washington's shuttle time, I think, was better than every other receiver there, except for Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he's 6'6.5", 264 pounds. So the size, the speed, the athleticism, the agility, 10.2 broad jump as well. Very, very good stuff from Darnell Washington. We also had this Zach Kuntz guy came out of nowhere from Old Dominion. I didn't even really know who this guy was. 6'7", 255, ran a 4.55, 4.12 shuttle, 6.87 three cone, 40-inch vertical, 10.8 broad. The single best RAS score from a tight end that MathBomb has ever seen since 1987. This will probably help his draft capital a ton. I could keep going with these guys. Luke Musgrave, 994 RAS score. You guys can see that on the screen. Sam Laporta, a 926 RAS score. Tucker Kraft, a 958 RAS score. We had Luke Schoonmaker also have like a 9.7 RAS score as well. Like all these guys are super, super athletic to the point that Michael Mayer looked like a bum next to these guys in terms of relative athletic score. But the important thing to remember, I think the biggest takeaway here is number one, Michael Mayer is not the clear tight end one in this class. I'm still going to have him as tight end one. And Dalton Kincaid actually didn't even test, who probably is the tight end one or tight end two for a lot of people. But it's not a huge gap between Michael Mayer and the rest of these guys. So I think Michael Mayer is going to slide in rookie drafts as a result of that. You're probably going to be able to get him at like 202, 203, 204 type of area. And we're going to see a lot of these tight ends go off the board in the early to mid second round, late second round, early third round range of rookie drafts. And in tight end premium leagues, maybe a little bit higher than that. But Michael Mayer, despite not having the greatest day, 4.7 40-yard dash, the 10-yard split and the 20-yard split were pretty solid. Athleticism overall solid, but not necessarily anything special. 6'4", 249 pounds. But the important thing to remember is that at tight end, we're looking for an RAS score above 7. And Michael Mayer cleared that with an 8 RAS score. And if he does his agility testing and he tests well there at Notre Dame, he could actually get this up even more. But overall, I think this tight end class is very strong. I think Michael Mayer, to me, is still the top guy, but it's a very close gap, right? Like if I have Michael Mayer, let's say at like 14 overall in my Superflex rookie rankings, I'm going to have Dalton Kincaid at like 17. I'm going to have Darnell Washington at like 21. I'm going to have Luke Musgrave at like 24. Like these guys are all going to be relatively in the same area. So if you're in need of tight ends and you have a lot of second round picks, probably take 2 shots at these guys in your rookie draft, or maybe take whoever's going the latest of the top guys that you like. But this class is deep. This class is top heavy. Sam Laporta, Tucker Kraft, this Zach Kuntz guy. These guys are all going to be available in the 3rd, 4th round of your rookie draft. So definitely a great day overall for the tight ends. That is the end of the combine recap. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. A little bit of a longer video, but I pretty much had to get through the entire NFL draft class in one video. So if you enjoyed, if you learned something, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Check out our sponsors, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code FSE. Check out our new sponsor, Aura, the best online security tool that you're ever going to need, all inside one app. VPN, parental controls, device protection, credit protection, identity theft protection, all that stuff available in one simple app. Check out the link down below in the description to get a 14-day free trial. Aura.com/fantasy stock exchange, or you can scan the QR code that's on your screen right now to check it out. So with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.
Why you need the money?